The issue isn't, are you going to be published? The issue is, are you going to be a writer? And what does it take to be a writer? A writer is someone who gets published, not because they decided I would publish this. It's because they were writing and found a voice and an audience and a thesis and material and then some way to get that published. Okay. The only advice I have, I am not a writer, I'm a scribbler. I scribble lots of notes. I have sort of stacks of different notebooks of ideas that never get written. But the only advice I have that's positive is from talking to writers, creative writers, not academic writers, but I think it's the same, that you write every day. A day without writing is a wasted day. We used to be neighbors with Philip Pullman, the Northern Star trilogy, or quadrilogy, and every day, morning, 9 to 12, whatever, he'd be in his garden shed writing. He was 3 houses down there. See that he was writing. Now, he didn't produce all that many books, but he kept that discipline so that he was writing. And the other one I learned this year, but I don't apply it myself, is to write in 45-minute chunks. So one of my fallacies is, I didn't put it up there, well, writing is a gift, easy for some. It's a discipline. And if you think of, well, I'm going to do the article, I need a whole day. Well, how many excuses do you have not to spend a day on something, particularly writing? But if you think, what can I write in 45 minutes at this slot and then that slot and the next slot? And how do I take a break between the slots so that I regenerate my thinking? Maybe you reread something or you organize something. But the creative writing comes in these little spurts where you sit down with a clear mind and get something done. Rejection means it isn't worth publishing. How many people have had articles rejected that they never resubmitted? Why? Well, how many popular authors were rejected more than once before they became bestsellers? J.K. Rowling, I think 5 rejections before somebody bought, what's his name? Publication in a decent journal means it is a good article? Not necessarily. Publication makes you a better person or an expert. It does validate your credentials. It doesn't actually mean you're an expert. The definition of expert is a different one. The definition of good is a very different one from being published. This is one I like at the moment, since I'm not really in a university position, that the innovation we see in this business is mostly coming from confronting practice. And there's some social theory on that from the resilience community. Mary Weasley, I think, is the author of that. But the sense that difficult problems are confronted gives you insight into what's worth doing, what's worth publishing. And I get a little bit nervous, you may pick that up, to read over and over again the kind of academic review, quasi-theory, that isn't based on real evidence of what's working at the on-the-ground basis. One that we find often, assertion is the same as evidence. So vulnerability operates at more than one social scale at the same time. That's one of my assertions. What's the difference between that assertion, generalized observation, and the evidence that would allow you to say that's a generalized conclusion that you could draw upon more widely? So think about your lines of evidence rather than just asserting a common wisdom in the article. We see it repeatedly, a conceptual framework, a diagram, a flow chart, boxes and arrows, becomes an analytical framework and a theoretical perspective. when really it's just some boxes and arrows. Okay, so be cautious in your boxing up your concepts as dressing them up as theory. Most of those don't last very long and become problematic, and they don't really substitute for insight. The curious thing in the H index is it doesn't weight whether you're, as far as I know, whether you're lead author or not. So being a junior author is fine as long as you're on the author list. Different cultural traditions. In Spain, I think, you, as a master's student, would not have the option of being senior author, but always be your supervisor. I don't know. I've heard that. Native English speakers are good writers. Anybody heard about native English? Okay. Don't worry. A lot of English native speakers are really bad writers. And the writing grammar can be fixed, not the thinking and not the structure, not the organization. Now, coming back to that, how do you become sort of significant in the business? A journal article is worth 1,000 blogs. There are other communication channels, whether it's writing for Ambio, a science magazine, or contributing to somebody else's blog, or setting up your own blog, Twitter, whatever it is, that establish yourselves in a particular place where you can be influential. Journals would support that, but they don't replace that